Everyone thinks she's the sweetest person alive. She volunteers at the animal shelter. She remembers everyone's birthdays. She's always the first to offer help when someone's struggling. You know different. You know that every act of kindness comes with strings attached. Every sacrifice is carefully documented and later weaponized. Every moment of selflessness is really a transaction where you're accumulating debt you'll never be able to repay. But when you try to explain this to anyone else, they look at you like you're the problem. Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I want to talk about the narcissist that nobody sees coming. The one who doesn't announce themselves with arrogance or grandiosity. The one who doesn't rage or demand or clearly abuse. The one who suffers, beautifully, publicly, and somehow it's always your fault. I'm talking about covert narcissism, and in my 25 years of practice, I can tell you these are often the most damaging relationships to recover from. Because everyone thinks you're the villain for leaving someone so devoted, so selfless, so clearly wounded by life. The two faces of narcissism. Let me start by clearing something up. When most people think narcissist, they picture the overt type, the one who's loud about their superiority, who brags, demands attention, throws tantrums when they don't get their way. Think reality TV personalities. Think the boss who takes credit for everyone else's work and doesn't even pretend to be humble about it. Overt narcissists are exhausting, but at least they're obvious. You know what you're dealing with fairly quickly. The mask might be charming at first, but it doesn't take long before you see the entitlement, the lack of empathy, the rage when they're challenged. Covert narcissists? They've perfected a completely different strategy. They get their narcissistic supply, that validation and attention they crave, not through aggrandizement, but through martyrdom. Through being the most sensitive, the most wounded, the most misunderstood, the most self-sacrificing person you'll ever meet. And you won't recognize it as narcissism. Because we've been taught that narcissists are supposed to be full of themselves. These ones appear to be full of self-loathing. But watch closely. That self-loathing is a performance designed to elicit constant reassurance, attention, and control. The wounded healer. I'm going to tell you about Nina. 28 years old, works as a social worker, because of course she does. Drawn to helping professions, drawn to broken people she can fix. Her partner Elijah came to see me alone first. I think there's something wrong with me, he said. Nina is the most caring person I've ever met. She does everything for me, and I feel trapped. Tell me more, I said. She grew up in a really difficult home. Her mom was an alcoholic, her dad left when she was young. She's been through so much trauma, and she's so open about it. She goes to therapy, she journals. She's done all this healing work. I admire her so much. But whenever I try to do something for myself, go out with friends, take a class, even just have a quiet evening alone, she gets this look, like I'm abandoning her. She doesn't say that, but I can feel it. And then she'll have a panic attack or she'll spiral into this deep depression, and I feel like a monster for wanting space. I asked him to describe what happens when he tries to set a boundary. She cries, he said. She says she understands, that she doesn't want to be a burden, that she knows she's too much. She apologizes over and over. She tells me I deserve better, and then I end up comforting her and reassuring her, and whatever boundary I was trying to set just disappears. So you end up taking care of her feelings about your boundary instead of actually getting the boundary? He looked at me like I'd just translated a language he'd been hearing but not understanding. Yes, exactly that. This is the covert narcissist's signature move. They make their pain your responsibility. And because they frame it as self-awareness, I know I'm too much. I know I'm damaged. You can't call it manipulation without seeming cruel. The martyr complex in full display. Let me tell you about Vernon. 56 years old, married 32 years, to a woman named Christine. Vernon came to therapy at the insistence of his daughter, who told him, "Dad, I love you, but you're miserable. You've been miserable my entire life." He defended Christine immediately. "Your mother has had a hard life. She sacrificed everything for this family. Everything I've accomplished is because she held things together at home." His daughter had apparently said, "She tells everyone that. But what exactly did she sacrifice? Because from where I'm sitting, you're the one who worked 2 jobs while she spent money we didn't have. You're the one who took care of us kids when we were sick because she had one of her episodes. You're the one who still can't have friends over because she might be having a bad day." Vernon was shocked his daughter saw it that way. "She doesn't understand," he told me. "Christine is fragile. She needs me." Over several sessions, a picture emerged. Christine had a mystery illness that no doctor could diagnose. She had chronic pain that prevented her from working, but didn't prevent her from shopping or meeting friends for lunch. She had anxiety that made Vernon's social life impossible, but somehow allowed her to maintain an active presence on social media, where she documented her struggles with brave vulnerability. "Everyone thinks she's so strong," Vernon said. "Her friends tell me all the time how lucky I am to have someone so positive despite everything she goes through." "What do you think?" I asked. Long silence. Then, "I think I've been a nurse, not a husband. And I think she likes it that way." The covert narcissist isn't strong despite their suffering. They're powerful because of it. Their fragility is their weapon. Their pain is their currency, and they make sure everyone knows about it, except in ways that make them look like they're bravely bearing it, not wielding it. The passive-aggressive empire. Here's what makes covert narcissism so crazy-making. They never directly demand anything. They imply, they suggest, they sigh, they look hurt, they withdraw. Elijah described trying to make plans with his friends. Nina wouldn't say, "Don't go." She'd say, "Of course you should go. I'll be fine here, alone. Don't worry about me." The guilt was so thick he could barely breathe. Or she'd say she was happy for him, but then spend the days leading up to his plans being noticeably depressed, moving slowly through the apartment like a ghost, sighing heavily. When he'd ask what's wrong, she'd say, "Nothing, I'm just having a hard day, but you should still go." The message was clear: if you leave, I will suffer, and it will be your fault. But because she technically gave him permission, he couldn't point to anything concrete. He just felt like a terrible person for having wants that didn't center her pain. Vernon described something similar. If he wanted to do something Christine didn't approve of, take a fishing trip with his brother, go to a work event, even just spend time in his garage workshop, she wouldn't forbid it. She'd just have a flare-up of her pain, or a panic attack, or she'd be fine, but then later reference how hard that day was for her, how she didn't want to burden him with it at the time, but she'd really struggled while he was gone. After a while, Vernon said, I just stopped trying to do anything that might upset her. It was easier. Easier. That's the word covert narcissists count on. It becomes easier to abandon yourself than to deal with their suffering. The communal narcissist, the ultimate cover. Now let me introduce you to a particular subtype that's especially damaging, the communal narcissist. These are the people who build their entire identity around being good, moral, selfless, spiritually evolved. They're not grandiose about their achievements. They're grandiose about their virtue. I worked with a man named Thomas, 34, who'd been in a relationship with a woman named Lydia for 4 years. Lydia was a yoga instructor and wellness coach. She posted daily about gratitude, healing, compassion, and self-love. She's the most emotionally intelligent person I've ever met, Thomas told me in our first session. She can read people. She understands trauma. She's helped so many people through difficult times. But, I asked, because I could hear the but hanging in the air, but I feel like I'm never enough, like I'm always failing some spiritual test. She'll say things like, I'm sensing a lot of ego in your response right now, or you're really stuck in your masculine energy, you need to soften. And maybe she's right. Maybe I'm just defensive. I asked him to give me an example. Last month, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. I was devastated. I called Lydia crying, and she said, "This is an opportunity for growth. What is your mother's cancer trying to teach you about attachment?" I watched his face as he told me this. He still looked confused about whether he was allowed to be hurt by that. When I told her that felt cold, she said I was trapped in victimhood and not ready to do the real work. She said she holds space for my pain, but she can't enable my resistance to healing. Communal narcissists use the language of therapy, spirituality, and social justice to maintain superiority. They're not better than you because they're smarter or richer or more beautiful. They're better than you because they're more evolved, more aware, more healed. And because this framework is draped in the language of compassion and growth, you can't challenge it without being resistant, unconscious, or still healing your wounds. Why the covert type is harder to leave. Here's what I need you to understand. Leaving an overt narcissist is hard, but society generally supports you. When someone is clearly abusive, screaming, controlling, threatening, people understand why you'd leave. But leaving someone who seems gentle, wounded, selfless, someone who never raises their voice, who only ever hurt you with their pain, not their anger, you look like the bad guy. Elijah finally ended things with Nina after 2 years. She immediately posted on social media about how she'd been abandoned by someone she thought would never hurt her, about how people show you who they really are when you're at your most vulnerable, about how she was grateful for the lesson in trusting too easily. Their mutual friends started reaching out to Elijah asking what happened, why he'd hurt her like that. She never said anything directly accusatory. She didn't have to. The implication was clear. She was the victim, and he was the person who victimized her. I started wondering if she was right, Elijah told me. Maybe I am a coward who runs when things get hard. Maybe I did abandon someone who needed me. No, you set yourself free from someone who turned your compassion into a cage. Vernon hasn't left Christine yet. He's 72 now. He came to therapy at his daughter's insistence, but mostly he uses the sessions to process the guilt of even thinking about leaving at his age. Where would she go? What would she do? She can't take care of herself, he says. Can't or won't? I ask gently. He doesn't answer. Thomas did leave Lydia. It took him a year of therapy to trust that his feelings mattered, that her spiritual framework was gaslighting in enlightened language. She told their community he was operating from wounded masculine energy and needed compassion for his healing journey away from toxic patterns. Translation: I'm the wise teacher, and he's the broken student who failed my class. The red flags you need to see. Let me give you some concrete markers of covert narcissism, because I think naming it is the first step in protecting yourself. Their pain is always the most important thing in the room. No matter what you're going through, somehow it circles back to their trauma, their struggle, their needs. They're perpetually the victim. Every story they tell positions them as the one who was wronged, misunderstood, underappreciated. There's always a villain in their narrative, and it's never them. They use their trauma as a shield. You can't criticize them, set boundaries, or express hurt without it being framed as you attacking their wounds. After everything I've been through, I can't believe you'd. They're helper saviors who keep you dependent. They do things for you that you didn't ask for, then reference those things when you try to leave or set boundaries. After everything I've done for you, Their generosity comes with invisible price tags. Every favor, every act of support, every moment of caretaking gets added to a ledger you didn't know you were keeping. They're experts at subtle punishment. They don't yell or threaten. They withdraw. They go quiet. They get sick or triggered. They make you feel their pain so intensely that you change your behavior to avoid causing it. They have a public persona of selflessness. Friends and family think they're wonderful, which makes you doubt your own experience. If everyone else thinks they're great, maybe you're the problem. They collect diagnoses and trauma like credentials, not to genuinely heal, but to explain why they deserve special treatment, unlimited patience, and freedom from accountability. The difference that matters. Now, I need to be really clear about something. Having trauma doesn't make you a covert narcissist. Being sensitive doesn't make you a covert narcissist. Going through depression or anxiety or chronic illness doesn't make you a covert narcissist. The difference is this. A person who's genuinely struggling wants to get better. They work on themselves not to gain sympathy, but to actually heal. When they realize their pain is hurting you, they feel genuine remorse and adjust their behavior. A covert narcissist uses their pain as a tool. They're not trying to heal, they're trying to control. When you point out that their behavior is hurting you, they make it about how much they're hurting, and somehow you end up apologizing. Nina was in therapy, yes, but she used therapy language to avoid accountability. My therapist says I have abandonment trauma, became an excuse for why Elijah wasn't allowed to have his own life. Christine had real pain maybe, but she also weaponized it. The worse Vernon's life got, the more she needed him. His suffering fed her supply. Lydia's spirituality wasn't about actual growth, it was about maintaining superiority. She could identify everyone else's ego, but somehow never her own. That's the difference. Use versus genuine struggle. What recovery looks like. If you're recognizing yourself in these stories, if you're realizing you've been in a relationship with a covert narcissist, the recovery is going to feel strange because you're going to grieve someone who seems so vulnerable. You're going to feel like you abandoned someone who needed you. You're going to question whether you were the abuser all along. Let me tell you what I told Elijah when he was spiraling through this. Someone who actually loves you doesn't make their healing your responsibility. Someone who actually respects you doesn't use their pain to control your choices. Someone who's actually emotionally intelligent creates space for your feelings, not just their own. You didn't abandon someone who needed you. You escaped someone who taught you that love means sacrificing yourself on the altar of their endless need. Thomas put it best in one of our later sessions. I thought I was helping someone heal. I didn't realize I was being slowly erased. That's it. That's what covert narcissism does. It erases you slowly, gently, with tears and apologies and proclamations of how broken they are. And when you finally say, I can't do this anymore, they get to play the victim one more time. To everyone who'll listen, let them, you know the truth. And eventually, you'll stop needing anyone else to validate it. If someone's pain has become your prison, you're not cruel for wanting to be free. If someone's vulnerability has become a weapon they use against your boundaries, you're not heartless for protecting yourself. If someone seems wounded, but somehow you're the one who ends up bleeding, you're not wrong for walking away. The covert narcissist banks on you being too compassionate to save yourself. Prove them wrong. Take care of yourselves. Trust what you feel, not just what they tell you to feel. I'll see you in the next one.